Okay, I want to start a series of videos on the collection of water when there's no water around. Now this might be one of the easiest methods. It's called a transpiration bag. It is simply a plastic bag tied over a tree branch like that. You can see the water in there. That's the water that's been collected. Now let's go through a few points here very quickly. You want to tie it nice and tightly around the branch and have it coming down like that. That's pretty much a perfect setup, so the water is going to collect down the bottom. Now, obviously you will need quite a few of these bags. The more the better to collect enough water for yourself. This has been here for 2 or 3 days now. That's how much water I've collected after 2 or 3 days. That's not much at all. So you need many of these bags. If you want to survive on just this sort of collection process, you need quite a few bags. The water works by transpiration. The tree is sucking water up from the ground through the roots, and the water vapour exits the leaves into the atmosphere. That's called transpiration. It's a transpiration bag. Apparently the vapour pressure can build up in the bag to such an extent that the transpiration process stops working. So you need to open up the bag and refresh it and close the bag again. It's all you're going to get. What I would recommend, every 2 or 3 hours, open up the bag, and we're going to collect this water, and you may as well collect the water every 2 or 3 hours, and you also recharge the bag, empty out the air, so the process will start again. That vapour pressure can then be released. You can put a tube, some sort of a tube or straw in there, tie it up and have a tube in there. If you're desperate for water, you can suck the water out. Just be careful to work the straw or the tube up to the very surface of the water. Perhaps not the very surface, because I can see dead ants and material floating on the surface, but just below the surface, suck the water out from there, because again, sedimentation works here. You can see right down there in the corner, I hope you can see that, all that gunk in the water, bits of leaves, bark, trees, dead ants, drowned ants and insects and so forth, have all settled down to the bottom corner. The last thing you want to do is put your straw straight down to the bottom and suck from there. What we are going to do is get our container. This happens to be my metal container. Hopefully you've got one metal container, at least you can boil water. You can still boil this water. If the water's been contaminated by insects and so forth, then boiling is still an option, but it is clean water in theory, apart from the toxins from the plants and whatever insects and material falls in the water, which we are going to strain out now. So what we're going to do is get a cloth material, happens to be a bandana, 2 layers over the container like that. And this is just a very general sort of straining. It can be a thin sort of material, that's fine. You saw when I collected water from the pond, I used my thick tea towel. 4 layers of thick tea towel is much better than just 2 thin layers of a cotton bandana. But all I'm doing is straining out insects and bits of tree and bits of leaves, so thin material is okay. Let's take this off the branch, just like that. And that's how small the branch was, just a few leaves. If you find a bushier branch with more leaves, you might get more water. Perhaps a bit of cordage around the cloth material to keep it on there. I'm just trying to do this nice and quickly for the camera. There we go. Every drop counts. I guess you could wring it out a bit. But we've collected a whole heap of, it's mainly dead ants, drowned ants, bits of leaves and so forth. So we'll get rid of that. The cotton bandana is now wet. I'm going to fold it up, put that around my neck. I want to get cool. Any moisture you want to take advantage of. If the breeze blows on that, the neck is a great way to keep the body cool. You've got massive arteries going up the neck. Under the arms and the groin area are 2 other areas where you can cool the body down, because you've got massive arteries near the skin. So a nice cool bandana, you take advantage of every moisture, every bit of moisture you can, especially if you're desperate for moisture. And there's our water. Not much at all. Obviously the more bags that you have, the better. I'm going to put a lid on to stop further dirt from going in there. put that aside. We're going to set up our bag again. If you can clean out the bag, then all the better for you, because it's full of dead ants. And that's why I'm not sure about putting a tube into the bag, because you're always going to have ants coming in, and you're potentially sucking up who knows what insects if you put a tube into the bag. But if you're careful, just below the surface but above the very bottom where the sedimentation occurs, you might get clean water out. If you're desperate for water, then that's an option. But every couple of hours you can collect the water, and you're going to recharge the bag, take that vapor pressure out of the bag, and it's going to work again, because if it builds up after a few hours, the transpiration stops working. You want to select perhaps a new branch. Just say, for example, this is a new branch. We can put it back on, tie it back up there. Make sure the tie is up high, and you've got a corner coming down like that, and that can keep going. In a few hours time, come back, keep collecting the water just like that. And the more bags you have, the better. Just on the bags, I think you want the bags to be clear plastic bags, if only so you can see in there. You can see the water, you can see how much water there is, you can see insects, how dirty the water is. Even if a mice crawls in and dies or something, you want to see that. But any plastic bag, I think, will work. Opaque, coloured plastic bags, but you might as well have clear plastic bags if you can, just so you can see what's in there and you can see the water. Now, I've got the water here. You get toxins from water. I don't know what sort of tree this is. This is a fruit tree, so I'm thinking it's not a poisonous tree. But if we get the water just a bit on the mouth, under the tongue, you're looking out for stinging, strong stinging sensation. That's not too bad. Now, don't forget, I've had all dead ants in there. Is that a concern? Who knows? I would actually go straight to boil as well. There's no reason why you can't, especially if you're cooking as well. You want to cook that's going to boil anyway, and you're going to be doubly safe for the water if it's boiled. But it is clean water, but it's been sitting there for days, there's insects in there, who knows what, so that's clean water. If you can't boil, water-soluble plant poisons will break down when you boil it. But there are plant poisons that are non-water soluble. There are two types of plant poisons: water soluble, which breaks down in water, and non-soluble, which won't break down in water. So if you get the really bad sort of poisons, the non-soluble poisons, which will make a stinging sensation in the mouth and so forth, that won't break down. It'll just concentrate in the water, and you can't get rid of it by boiling. So you don't want to drink that water. Now, I'm not going to tell you there must be millions of species of trees and so forth, but you just want to test the water. Then you can drink a bit and wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes, drink a bit more and wait a couple of hours. And if it seems to be okay, if it tastes nice and sweet, it's not stinging, it's not, a strong sort of stinging sensation, or if you don't get sick after ingesting a bit, then it might be okay to drink. Well, it should be okay to drink. But for the sake of the argument, I'm not going to drink it. I would prefer to boil it anyway. There's been ants in there. But in a desperate situation, that's no problems at all. It tastes fairly sweet, not too bad. So there's water collection, that much water. And the amount of water you saw there didn't change much from a couple of hours to a couple of days. So I'm thinking that process where the water vapor does build up, it does get to a point where transpiration stops. So you want to collect the water every few hours, recharge the bag, tie it back up, and if you keep doing that to a number of bags, hopefully you might collect enough water to sustain life. Plus with other water you might find, that's better than nothing. It might keep you alive. You can put a tube in. Clear plastic bags are the best. Be careful for toxic plants and toxic water. And you can still boil it. Strain it off first into a container. That's what I recommend.